Just to be clear, is Donald Trump, as you say now, the best president of the 21st century?
Of the 21st century. Yes, he was.
Let me ask my question. Let me finish the question. Is Donald Trump, as you say now, the best president of the 21st century, who you say you want as an advisor?
Today, we're reacting to a fiery interview between journalist Mehdi Hasan and Republican presidential candidate Vivek Ramaswamy. What starts as a discussion about Vivek's presidential campaign quickly turns into a heated clash over his business record, foreign policy ideas, past statements, and political credibility. The questions are tough, the exchanges are intense, and both men refuse to back down. Watch the full debates, and afterward, I'll share my thoughts on who made the stronger case.
You're an advocate, your critics say, of fantasy politics, of magical thinking. They say you propose stuff that can't be done. For example, you said on Meet the Press the other week that if you had been in Mike Pence's place on January the 6th, you would have insisted on first passing a bill that night to bring in single-day voting on Election Day with paper ballots.
That's inaccurate.
Government-issued ID.
I never said that night. I never said that night.
What you would have done on January the 6th, and you said I would have done this, and the next day
I said what I would have done differently is that I was precise about the period between, and this is still ambitious, I will admit, but at least let's get my view correct. It is ambitious. Between November 4th and January 6th, I think it was an opportunity for heroism.
Just to be clear, you never said anything about
said it every step.
Let's play the clip. Guys, do we have the clip?
I've said this in countless forums.
Let's have a listen to the clip.
On your Chuck Todd splice script, in all of my written statements and everything I've said,
hold on, we're playing the clip right now.
In that period, between the election.
Here's what I would have said. We need single-day voting on Election Day. We need paper ballots, and we need government-issued ID matching the voter file. And if we achieve that, then we have achieved victory, and we should not have any further complaint about election integrity.
So what would you have done
through the Senate?
So what would you have done with Mike Pence? You would have not certified the election?
So in my capacity as president of the Senate, I would have led through that level of reform, then on that condition certified the election results, served it up to the president, President Trump, then to sign that into law, and on January 7th declared the re-election campaign pursuant to a free and fair election.
Vivek, not only do you not mention anything about November, but let's say you did do November. That joint session was not a legislative session. The vice president doesn't have the power to introduce legislation. Neither party would have backed such a bill.
Oh, come on,
it couldn't have been passed in a day.
The fact of the matter is,
naive stuff
the president, the president and vice president absolutely drive legislation through Congress. That is exactly how things work.
But Trump wasn't doing legislation. He was busy pushing the big lie, as you pointed out yourself in your books.
Well,
so he wasn't there.
I wasn't the vice president of the United States.
Passed a bill, but
I was not the vice president of the United States. You guys in the media, you guys in the MSNBC crack me up to sort of create a hypothetical situation to say, if you had been vice president, what would you have been doing? I'm telling you exactly what I've been doing, but you're saying, but that's not what Donald Trump was doing. This is a
Pence asked you,
let's actually have a substantive conversation. Do you want to have a substantive conversation about what should have happened, or do you want to play a game of gotcha? Because you have the choice. The choice is yours. Do you actually want to have a substantive converation? If you do, I'm down to do it. Do you want a substantive conversation? What we need.
You said substantive 4 times.
Actually, if you want to get a word in, you know, if you're going to speak the truth and ask a legitimate question, have at it.
I think it is a legitimate question. Multiple people wondered about your knowledge of how Congress works, suggesting Mike Pence, by the way, on the debate stage asked you if you would have supported what he did. It's not an MSNBC question. It's a Republican vice president question.
Yes.
So fine, you don't want to answer
it. And what I'm
you
saying is
it was
a missed opportunity for heroism, not in one day, but I think that in a period of 2 months. And I think you're a smart guy.
You understand this. There's an American confidence. You're a smart guy. It couldn't have been done in 2 months.
I think under extraordinary circumstances, in extraordinary times, we have an American Confidence in Elections Act. It's literally making its way through Congress now. ACE. I support it. I think if we had gotten that done during that window, further we said single-day voting on Election Day as a national holiday.
And Mitch McConnell wouldn't have agreed to a national holiday.
I think Democrats should agree to it.
We can argue forever. We can argue forever
I think
about
Democrats should agree to it.
That's a different argument.
And that's what I stand
for.
I think we're still going to get that done when I'm the president.
Okay.
When I'm the president. Not in some fantasy land where I was vice president in some other year in the historical history.
Let's talk about you as
but
president.
What I'm running for
Understood.
is what we're going to do.
Let me ask a question so we don't run out of time. Please don't filibuster. I just want to ask a question about when you're president, you said this is your words, quote, if you want to stay out of no-win wars and make America stronger at home, I know how to get that done. Genuine question,
Yes.
Vivek, not a gotcha. How? How do you know how to get that done? With respect,
Yes.
you've literally never done anything like that in your life. I could go out on the street outside the studio, grab someone. They have as much experience as you do of keeping us out of foreign wars. That's not an insult. That's just a statement of fact.
No, it's not an insult. It's a fact, right? And it is also a fact that everybody else who does have experience in the foreign policy establishment has been sending us into no-win wars for a long time. Both of those are facts. Here's how I would do it. Let's get specific, and I'm glad we've finally gotten to the doorstep of actually discussing a policy agenda. Here's what I would do. Pull Russia apart in its military alliance with China. Those two countries are in a military treaty dating back to 2001. That is the single greatest threat that the United States faces. So I would end the Ukraine war on terms that, yes, allow Ukraine to at least come out with its sovereignty intact, which may not even be the track they're on right now. But in return, and also make a commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO. In conjunction, and by the way, for people in the foreign policy establishment, they forgot that Gorbachev was made that promise by James Baker in the United States in 1990. Well, so keep our word there. But in return, actually make a hard requirement that Vladimir Putin exit his military alliance with China and remove his Russian military presence from the West. That's the deal that I would do.
Again, the fantasy land is why would Putin just agree with you? Why? Because you asked nicely, Putin will hold his word. He'll pocket your concessions and not just carry on dealing with his biggest trading partner, China?
Well, here's the thing. I actually think that China shouldn't be his biggest trading partner. I think it's a mistake that we've closed off economic relations with Russia. I would lead both the United States and the West to reopen economic relations with Russia because Putin does not enjoy being Xi Jinping's little brother. Mehdi, you're a smart guy. Look at what he's done. He's actually sent weapons to both India and Vietnam right after the February 2022 meeting he had with Xi Jinping. There are cracks in that armor, but we need to actually open our eyes to see the opportunity staring us in the face.
We will have to agree to disagree whether we think that you can persuade Vladimir Putin to drop his alliance with Xi Jinping. You have made truth the centerpiece of your campaign. So let's talk about your trustworthiness.
Yes.
For example, when CNN quoted you talking to The Atlantic about 9/11 and federal agents possibly being on the planes, you said the quote is wrong, actually. But the quote wasn't wrong. The Atlantic released the audio of what you saying exactly what they said you said.
Hold on,
let me finish the question.
Let me be crystal clear.
Let me finish the question.
The Atlantic should release the whole tape. They've refused to do it. Yep.
You said on Twitter Spaces last month that no, you had never supported Bernie Sanders' mask for all legislation, but you literally put out a tweet in July of 2020 calling it a sensible idea. You also said not once but twice in June and July that the first time you'd ever voted was in 2020 for Trump, but in fact the first time you voted for president was in 2004 for a pro-choice libertarian candidate. How can people believe what you say?
So, Mehdi, let me just go through one by one. The Atlantic, yes, purposefully spliced an out-of-context quote where we have challenged them. They released the tapes. We asked them for the tapes first. They didn't give them to us. They waited then to splice them and release them publicly. I challenged the Atlantic to release that entire conversation. And what was a conversation about how many federal agents were in the field.
You said was wrong. We all heard it. We can play it if you like.
No,
it is exactly word for word what she quoted to you. You said they put words in your mouth.
Look, if you want... If you want hard facts, here are hard facts. That day, The Atlantic printed it. I said, that looks like something that never captured the character of our conversation. Can you ask Atlantic for the tapes? They said they would refuse to release the recording to us. So when Caitlin asked me about it, I said, that does not at all sound like the context of what I said. And then, it turns out The Atlantic releases a very...
Everybody should listen to it. You're putting words in my mouth.
It functionally sends the wrong message, Mehdi.
Oh, functionally. Okay. You could have said it's out of context. You said the quote was
so badly taken out of context that it misled their audience. It was so badly taken out of context. It was basically a lie and it misled their audience. But ask the Atlantic to release it. So my view here is,
the lie is denying you said words that we all heard you say on tape.
Filters. Mehdi, if they are going to cut something before and after without the question of what the guy is that came beforehand, come on, why wouldn't the Atlantic? Why are they so reluctant to release the whole recording?
Maybe
Ask
because the audio they released, you're still denying you said what's on the audio. Okay, let's ask you this question. Is Donald Trump,
it's a
as
joke
you say
that
now,
the media is going to selectively edit this, and this is the way this game is played. Politics is dirty. That's okay. I'm ready for it.
Is Donald Trump, as you say now, the best president of the 21st century?
Of the 21st century. Yes, he was.
Let me ask my question. Let me finish the question. Is Donald Trump, as you say now, the best president of the 21st century, who you say you want as an advisor and a mentor if you become president? Or is Trump, as you've said in the past, in your books, on Twitter, a, quote, sore loser who is a, quote, danger to democracy and who did, quote, downright abhorrent and egregious things on January the 6th? Which one is he, Vivek?
So to be crystal clear, between George Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump, those are the presidents of the 21st century. Donald Trump is unambiguously, as judged by the results, the best president of the 21st century. Kept us out of wars, grew the economy. I give him full credit for that. I want to build on that foundation and take this country to the next level.
But you've also called him a sore
Does that mean
loser
I would have
who is
made
a danger to democracy. Those are strong words.
Would I have made the same judgments that he has made at every step of the way? No. I will remind you that I am running for U.S. president because I am best positioned to lead this country forward.
Can I ask you what they are, Vivek?
Yes.
You say he behaved in downright abhorrent behavior that makes him a danger to democracy. What was it that was downright? Tell me what he did that was downright abhorrent.
Let's actually be really fair to your audience. So on January 10th, 2021, thereabouts, days after that incident, I wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal arguing that censorship was the real cause of what happened on January 6th. When asked in response, somebody asked me the question, are you... That's what I wrote. I'm giving you the facts of what I said. That's a hard fact. That was published in the Wall Street Journal. When pressed on, was that condoning what Trump did? My answer was no. There's a difference between a bad judgment and a crime.
And
we
you're
need to
my
be
question.
able to tell the difference in this country.
What did Donald Trump do,
no, I'm not avoiding
in your
question.
view, that was downright abhorrent? Second time
I think that the thing that I would have done differently if I were in his shoes
not what I asked,
is
Vivek,
I would have
respect.
declared re-election on
That's
January
not what I asked, with
7th.
Respect. I'll ask it a third
That's exactly the thing I would have done.
What did Trump do that was egregious, quote, downright abhorrent, and a danger to democracy? Can you just explain to our viewers? Your words.
So you're mixing two different quotes. But what did I think was reprehensible about what happened that day? Look, I think that the way a true leader should have handled that situation should have been to actually say, this is me running for re-election, not actually litigating what is already passed and behind us. And I would have done things differently. That is not a crime, though, what he did.
I understand.
And the reason I have been so vehement.
You keep saying what you would have done. I just want to hear from your mouth. No, unless you're scared of him, why won't you say what he did that was downright abhorrent?
I'm not going to let you you're stitching together three things from three different places
to create
a caricature. Do you want to have an actual conversation?
Yes, I want you to answer my question, Vivek. Three times I've asked it. What did Trump do that was downright abhorrent? It's a simple question. It's your words. It's on screen. What did he do that was downright abhorrent?
I believe that failing to unite this country falls short of what a true leader ought to do.
After watching that entire exchange, it's clear this wasn't an easy interview for either side. Mehdi Hasan came prepared with receipts, past quotes, and documented evidence, repeatedly pressing Vivek Ramaswamy on issues of consistency and credibility. At the same time, Vivek remained composed under pressure and continued to defend his record and broader vision for the country. The biggest takeaway is that voters often care less about a politician making mistakes and more about whether their current positions align with their past statements. That's where much of this interview was focused. Some viewers will walk away feeling Mehdi exposed important contradictions, while others will feel Vivek successfully pushed back against what he saw as unfair characterizations. Either way, this is the kind of interview that forces candidates to answer difficult questions, rather than rely on campaign talking points. In a political environment where many interviews stay at the surface level, this one went much deeper. Let me know what you think in the comments. Did Mehdi ask fair questions? Did Vivek answer them effectively? And who do you think came out stronger in this debate?